Hi, hello, and welcome to a slightly different fall book recommendations video. So I've been watching all of you post your recommendations and I've been loving seeing them. And I was going to make my own, and then I was like, you know what would be more fun, since I'm trying to read more books off my shelf, would be to go through the channels I'm subscribed to, watch some of their fall book recommendation videos, and see, number one, how many of them I have just things in common with. Two, use that as encouragement to read things off of my shelf. And three, let's just make it fun. So welcome to Booktubers Recommend, and this is the fall edition. I picked out 8 booktubers, I believe. The most in common with at 7 with Jananie and Leonie, who I love both of their channels for very different reasons. If you've ever watched their videos, their vibes are entirely different, but they both bring the most quality recommendations and fun videos to watch every week. Then we have Heather from famed Heather McLary or Heath's Book Club on Instagram. Then we have at 2 apiece, Emmie, Kat, Lexi, and Regan. Love all of them so much. And then lastly at 1, which this is a deceptive one, is Jerrilyn. And the only reason it's at 1 is because as I was going through her video, I had read a lot of the things that she was recommending already. So unfortunately, it was just at a 1 for the recommendations list, but we have similar vibes and things we read. So had a great time. I will have all of their channels linked down below so that you can go and check them out if you're not already subscribed. So let's dive right in. First on the list, The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangha Mandana. This was on Lexi's recommendations, Jananie, Heather, and Emmie. This book has been making the rounds for, I think, 2 or 3 years at this point because it is quintessential fall. I guess I'll read you the synopsis because that's something I should do, and I should have thought of that before. This is actually one of the few books that I don't have. So out of the 10 books for this video, I have 6 of them in physical copies in my room right now, and so I wasn't really thinking about the other 4, but let's dive in. So Sangha Mandana released this book in August 23rd of 2022. So it's been 2 years now that this has been out, and it has been a fan favorite both on BookTube and TikTok and Instagram, and I think for good reason. From all of the reviews I have seen of it, it hits just all of the great fall spots of being witchy, but somewhat cozy, but there are some stakes to it, but they're not too high, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. So this is about a few witches in Britain. Mika Moon knows she has to hide her magic and keep her head down and stay away from other witches so their power doesn't mingle and draw attention. And it says, as an orphan who lost her parents at a young age and was raised by strangers, she's used to being alone and she follows the rules, with one exception, an online account where she posts videos pretending to be a witch. She thinks no one will take it seriously, but someone does. An unexpected message arrives begging her to travel to the remote and mysterious Nowhere House to teach 3 young witches how to control their magic. It breaks all of the rules, but Mika goes anyway, and is immediately tangled up in the lies and secrets of not only her 3 charges, but also an absent archaeologist, a retired actor, 2 long-suffering caretakers, and Jamie, the handsome and prickly librarian of Nowhere House. Jamie would do anything to protect the children, and as far as he's concerned, a stranger like Mika is a threat. An irritating, appealing a threat. As Mika begins to find her place at Nowhere House, the thought of belonging somewhere begins to feel like a real possibility, but magic isn't the only danger in the world, and when a threat comes knocking at their door, Mika will need to decide whether to risk everything to protect a found family she didn't know she was looking for. I absolutely love found family, so I am very excited to dive into this. Next up, we have Babel, also with 4 recommendations from Kat, Jananie, Heather, and Leonie. So Babel, as we all know, from the Queen, R.F. Kuang. I have had her books on my TBR basically all year and have not read a single one. I say that I read The Poppy War and the second book in that series that I can't think of the name of several years ago, and then I was waiting for the 3rd one to come out, and I just did that thing where I just moved on and then I just never went back. And so I know a reread of that series is in my future, but I also really want to get into her standalones, and Babel sounds like the perfect dark academia book. I have not been in that world since I read If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio like 2 years ago, and I would like to go back. So this also is a play on the Tower of Babel. If you have had any church time in your life, the name will sound familiar. It is based off those themes. So we're set in 1828. It says Robin Swift, orphaned by cholera in Canton, is brought to London by the mysterious Professor Lavelle. There, Robin trains for 4 years in Latin, Ancient Greek, and Chinese, all in preparation for the day he'll enroll in Oxford University's prestigious Royal Institute of Translation, also known as Babel. The Tower and its students are the world's center for translation and, more importantly, magic. Silverworking, the art of manifesting the meaning lost in translation using enchanted silver bars, has made the British unparalleled in power, as the arcane craft serves the Empire's quest for colonization. For Robin, Oxford is a utopia dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge, but knowledge obeys power, and as a Chinese boy raised in Britain, he realizes serving Babel means betraying his motherland. As his studies progress, Robin finds himself caught between Babel and the shadowy Hermes Society, an organization dedicated to stopping imperial expansion. When Britain pursues an unjust war with China over silver and opium, Robin must decide. Can powerful institutions be changed from within, or does revolution always require violence? I can't wait. I'm so glad I also checked. I have this on my Kindle because this is a hardback. I never read hardbacks, and this thing is beefy. She's thick. I also might have this on audio, actually. This is a book that's been on my TBR basically since it came out. I've been meaning to read it, and then the hype just got so big. And if you don't know me, when the hype gets too big, I shy away from the book. It's not that I'll never read it, and it's not even about the fact that a ton of people are reading it. It's that they're all talking about it, and I'm trying to avoid all of their opinions so I can form my own. And so I've intentionally just kind of waited this out, and I think now's the perfect time to dive in. Third on the list is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. This was recommended by Jerrilyn, Heather, and Leonie. I have both books in this duology, and if I end up liking this, I will dive immediately into Two Twisted Crowns. It says, Elspeth Spindle needs more than luck to stay safe in the eerie, mist-locked kingdom of Blunder. She needs a monster. She calls him the Nightmare, an ancient, mercurial spirit trapped in her head. He protects her, he keeps her secrets. But nothing comes for free, especially magic. When Elspeth meets a mysterious highwayman on the forest road, her life takes a drastic turn. Thrust into a world of shadow and deception, she joins a dangerous quest to cure Blunder of the dark magic infecting it. Except the highwayman just so happened to be the king's own nephew, captain of the most dangerous men in Blunder, and guilty of high treason. I love stakes. I'm questioning, is this a love triangle thing? Is she going to fall in love with her monster, or is she just going to fall in love with the king's nephew? Is it going to be none of the above? Who knows? I can't wait to find out. I don't know if it still is, but for a while this duology was on Kindle Unlimited, so if you're curious about it, you may check that out. Alrighty, our fourth recommendation is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This recommendation comes from Jananie, Heather, and Emmie. I, much like Babel, have been putting this off because of the hype and all the conversation, and I wanted to read and form my own opinion, and I've had this book on my shelf probably for 6 or 8 months at this point. I think at one point it was on the buy one, get one half off shelf at Barnes & Noble or Tables. And I picked it up and then just never dove in, but I need to. So this follows Galaxy Alex Stern in the most unlikely member of Yale's freshman class. It says, raised in the Los Angeles hinterlands by a hippie mom, Alex dropped out of school early and in a world of shady drug dealer boyfriends, dead-end jobs, and much, much worse. In fact, by age 20, she is the sole survivor of a horrific, unsolved multiple homicide. Some might say she's thrown her life away, but at her hospital bedside, Alex is offered a second chance to attend one of the world's most prestigious universities on a full ride. What's the catch and why her? Still searching for answers, Alex arrives in New Haven, tasked by her mysterious benefactors with monitoring the activities of Yale's secret societies. Their 8 windowless tombs are the well-known haunts of the rich and powerful, from high-ranking politicos to Wall Street's biggest players. But their occult activities are more sinister and more extraordinary than any paranoid imagination might conceive. They tamper with forbidden magic, they raise the dead, and sometimes they prey on the living. Let's go. I'm sensing a theme to all of these choices here. Are you? Okay. Some would call this the OG Dark Academia book. It's The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I had a lot of feelings initially about whether or not I was going to read this. Number one, because I think there's better dark academia out there. Yeah, I'm going to say that even though I haven't read this, and that's just from other people's commentary. But I also sometimes like to read the foundational seems too strong, but a work that has inspired a lot of other work, and I think I would be remiss to say that this book hasn't spawned a lot of dark academia that we enjoy today. And so I would like to give it a shot and see what it's all about. And it's been on my shelf for freaking ever at this point, so why not? And if I don't like it, I will unhaul it. So this recommendation comes from Jananie, Heather, and Leonie. This came out in 2014. Maybe 2013, but it won the Pulitzer Prize in 2014. So that has to mean something, maybe. Under the influence of their charismatic classics professor, a group of clever, eccentric misfits at an elite New England college discover a way of thinking and living that is a world away from the humdrum existence of their contemporaries. But when they go beyond the boundaries of normal morality, they slip gradually from obsession to corruption and betrayal, and at last, inexorably, into evil. I think this is going to be like a Poor Little Rich Kids vibe and somebody gets murdered, because it's dark academia. Somebody's getting murdered. Alrighty, coming in at number 6 is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. Somehow I have not read anything by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and I don't know how. I've had plenty of her books on my TBR. I have Silver Nitrate in my Libro FM library right now, and yet I have yet to read anything from her, which is wild. This recommendation comes from Jananie, Regan, and Leonie. It says, from the author of Gods of Jade and Shadow comes a reimagining of the classic Gothic horror novel, a story about an isolated mansion in 1950s Mexico and the brave socialite drawn to its treacherous secrets. After receiving a frantic letter from her newlywed cousin, Naomi Tobata heads to High Place, a distant house in the Mexican countryside. Naomi is an unlikely rescuer. She's a glamorous debutante, more suited for cocktail parties than amateur sleuthing. But she's also tough, smart, and not afraid. Not of her new cousin's English husband, a stranger who is both menacing and alluring. Not of his father, the ancient patriarch who seems fascinated by Naomi. And not even of the house itself, which begins to invade Naomi's dreams with visions of blood and doom. Naomi's only ally is the inhospitable place is the family's youngest son, but he too may be hiding a dark secret. As Naomi begins to unearth stories of violence and madness, she is slowly drawn into a terrifying yet seductive world, a world that may be impossible to escape. That sounds incredible. Yeah. Why have I been putting this off? I don't know. I really don't know with this one. Maybe because I generally don't reach for horror, but I want to more. I think I'm just scared, if I'm being quite honest. Okay, I think this next one is number 7. I've lost count at this point. I do not have this one physically. It's A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. In general, I've had her books on my TBR for quite some time, and I just haven't made the jump. And I think it's because for the longest time I thought they were all YA, and I don't think that they are. This one's going to follow Effie Sayer. It says, Effie has always believed in fairy tales. Haunted by visions of the fairy king since childhood, she had no choice. Her tattered copy of Angarid Emerus Midrin's epic about a mortal girl who falls in love with the fairy king, then destroys him, is the only thing keeping her afloat. So when Midrin's family announces a contest to redesign the late author's estate, Effie feels certain it's her destiny. But musty, decrepit High-Earth Manor is an impossible task, and its residents are far from welcoming, including Preston Hellery, a stodgy young literature scholar determined to expose Midrin as a fraud. As the two rivals piece together clues about Midrin's legacy, dark forces, both mortal and magical, conspire against them, and the truth may bring them both to ruin. I don't want to go be as bold as to call this enemies to lovers, but I do enjoy let's call it rivals to lovers vibe that I'm picking up from here. Who knows what that is? And I also love when the rivals stop being rivals so that way they can team up against another entity, and I feel like that's what's going to happen here, and that sounds great to me. Okay, next we have Bride by Allie Hazelwood. This recommendation came from Jananie and Leonie. This follows Misery Lark, daughter of a powerful vampire councilman, and she's an outcast. Her days of living anonymously among the humans are over. She has been called upon to uphold an alliance between the vampires and their mortal enemies, the Wares. Wares are ruthless and unpredictable, and their alpha, Lo Morland, is no exception. He rules his pack with absolute authority, but not without justice or feeling. It's clear from the way he tracks Misery's every movement that he doesn't trust her. If only he knew how right he was. Misery has her own reasons to agree to this marriage of convenience, reasons that have nothing to do with politics or alliance and everything to do with the only thing she's ever cared about. And she is willing to do whatever it takes to get back what's hers. I can't wait. That almost feels a little heisty. Love a marriage of convenience. I expect plenty of my wife moments. And I'm excited for the little paranormal twists of vampires and werewolves because I do not read about either of those two frequently. And yes, I do know about like the knots and stuff, even though this is not an Omegaverse, but that's going to be a part of it. And I will deal. That was the last book I had physically. These next two have been on my TBR. This first one's been on my TBR for a while. I want to say 3 years maybe. And so much so I thought I had a physical copy of it, but I don't. It's Piranesi by Susanna Clark. This was recommended by Kat and Leonie. It says, Piranesi's house is no ordinary building. Its rooms are infinite, its corridors endless. Its walls are lined with thousands upon thousands of statues, each one different from all the others. Within the labyrinth of halls, an ocean is imprisoned, waves thunder up staircases, rooms are flooded in an instant. But Piranesi is not afraid. He understands the tides as he understands the pattern of the labyrinth himself. He lives to explore the house. There's one other person in the house, a man called the Other, who visits Piranesi twice a week and asks for help with research into a great and secret knowledge. But as Piranesi explores, evidence emerges of another person, and a terrible truth begins to unravel, revealing a world beyond the one Piranesi has always known. I have heard such great things about this book, and while I generally don't take Goodreads ratings as like Bible, this is a 4.23 average rating with 321,577 ratings and over 50,000 reviews. This has to be good. It has to be. Has to be. And last but not least is Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. This was recommended by Jerrilyn and Lexi. I really wanted to throw in some romance books in this, but ones that were not in my general comfort zone, hence Bride and Serpent and the Wings of Night. This is another highly rated one on Goodreads, 4.32 rating, 3 average on 430,000 plus ratings, 50,000 reviews. This also, I believe, is a trilogy, or at least has 3 books in the series. The third book is not out yet, but will be in November. And my best friend has read this series and loved it. And so I wanted to read it, catch up, so we could, in theory, read the third book together. It says, human or vampire, the rules of survival are the same. Never trust, never yield, and always, always guard your heart. The adopted human daughter of the Nightborn vampire king Oriah carved her place in a world designed to kill her. Her only chance to become something more than prey is entering the Kajari, a legendary tournament held by the goddess of death herself. But winning won't be easy amongst the most vicious warriors from all 3 vampire houses. To survive, Oriah is forced to make an alliance with a mysterious rival. Everything about Rain is dangerous. He's a ruthless vampire, an efficient killer, an enemy to her father's crown, and her greatest competition. Yet what terrifies Oriah most of all is that she finds herself oddly drawn to him. But there's no room for compassion in the Kajari. War for the House of Night brews, shattering everything that Oriah thought she knew about her home. And Rain may understand her more than anyone, but their blossoming attraction could be her downfall in a kingdom where nothing is more deadly than love. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. That sounds like it would be extremely my shit. It just really does. I have started to get into romantasy a little bit. I feel like I'm kind of pickier than most when it comes to it, but I've heard nothing about good things about that book in particular and like really that series. And so I'm very excited to read it. So those are all the books that I'm planning to read this fall winter season, based on recommendations from some of my and your favorite booktubers. I would love to make this maybe like a quarterly or yearly, there's that once every 6 months kind of video where I take booktuber recommendations and read them and let you know how that goes. So I'm excited. Look out for the follow-up vlogs and videos that will come from me reading all of these books, and I will see you guys in another video soon.